There were many popular kid shows in the 90s, and we'll probably end up getting to a lot of them in this video series. However, today I'm going to talk about two that were standouts of my childhood. I'm talking about shows that had me doing flying leaps off of the couch and hitting massive carpet burn and responsible for probably a few broken lamps, as well as some questionable fashion choices. I'm talking about X-Men, the animated series, and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. These two shows were so iconic to my childhood, and while my love of X-Men certainly lasted longer than my love for Power Rangers, they both hold a special place in my heart. So welcome to the very first episode of I Miss the 90s. X-Men the Animated Series made its debut on Saturday, October 31st, 1992 on the much-missed Fox Kids network. Saturday morning cartoons used to be the morning activity for kids. The Fox lineup got me out of bed early in the morning, and I would binge watch cartoons from 8 a.m. until noon. X-Men was always one of the last shows to air, about 11 o'clock, 11:30, and I knew when it was over, it was time for me to do chores. So I did what any other kid did. When it ended, I pretended like I was taking a huge dump in the bathroom for a half an hour. I still had to do my chores like mowing the lawn or picking up sticks, but I got to do it later. Kid logic. When X-Men first aired, there was a pretty decent lineup on Fox that included Bobby's World, Eek the Cat, and Tiny Toon Adventures. But holy shit, when X-Men came out, it was mind-blowing. Giant robots, laser blasts, strong-ass chicks, razor claws, death, destruction, 90s catchphrases. It was a huge step up into a world I only knew a little about. Now, you probably know the story of the X-Men. The X-Men are a group of mutants under the leadership and training of Professor Charles Xavier. They're in a constant struggle to use their powers to protect those that fear and hate them, while also fighting against fellow mutants that view their gifts as weapons to establish dominance over the human race. The series mostly did a good job at showing this main theme. However, it also touched on really heavy themes such as racism, xenophobia, and homophobia, which is the overarching theme of the X-Men, but they made it accessible for a younger audience. The show's serious tone and animation was a step up from previous superhero cartoons that aired in the late 80s and early 90s. It was bright, action-packed, and everything an impressionable 9-year-old could want. I couldn't tell you how many times I made homemade Wolverine claws, or figured out how to make and throw cards just like Gambit, or how many times I used the phrase,
"Alright, you egg-sucking piece of gutter trash,"
just like my hero. Now, while the show kicked a lot of ass, I did have a lot of criticisms, even when I was young. For one thing, I always felt like the show was aired out of order, or at least every time I watched it, it was always the Phoenix Saga or a time-traveling episode. As a kid, I had no idea what the hell was going on. You'd start watching and then you'd be like, okay, is Jean Grey around? Wait, okay, there's she. Wait, no, is she the Phoenix now? Wait, okay, Morph is back. I thought he died. Oh, he's evil now. You can tell because he's got the bags under his eyes. Wait, why is there a dinosaur in this one? Which space adventure is this? Wait, what about this one? Ah, there it is, time travel. There's Bishop, right on time. Check out that hair. He was supposed to be from our time period. Well, I guess that's really not that hard to believe. Also, this is a minor criticism involving Wolverine's character. I know it's a cartoon for kids, but I really felt like he never used his claws. Check this scene out. First, I'd like to point out Wolverine just launched his Jeep 20 feet into the air. There's no way he's going to be able to salvage that Jeep after this. It's just gone. Now, this would be a really cool scene if he straight up murdered some dudes after jumping out of his Jeep, but he literally just grabs their heads and pushes them down. What the hell was that? Oh, those dudes that Wolverine just lunged at from 20 feet in the air, messing up the suspension on his Jeep, and handled them with more care than a UPS delivery driver? Yep, those dudes, they're called the Friends of Humanity. Basically, they're neo-Nazis. And Wolverine just pushes them down. I mean, honestly, this would be the perfect time to just... Nazis. It seemed like Wolverine really only ever used his claws against sentinels, doors, cars, basketballs, salami.
Where's that blasted salami? I can smell it. Ah, all it needs is slicing.
While you're at it, fix one for me.
Watching the show again, there's a lot of dialogue choices that I actually find pretty funny.
Hold it. I smell something oily. Turkey.
We on our own in this world. Life is random. Deal you a full house or a busted flush.
Wait, what?
What'd I say?
Why does everything have to be a card reference?
Ducks. I hate ducks.
Huh. Apparently Wolverine hates ducks. Now, my next criticism, I don't believe I really noticed that much when I was a kid, because kids are just kind of used to this shit. But I wonder what my mom thought about the yelling in this show. Like, seriously, everybody is always screaming.
Leave me alone!
Look at that face. Rogue enjoys this.
Power! Incredible power!
Alright, you gotta admit, that's kind of funny. So the question is, does X-Men the Animated Series hold up after nearly 30 years? You know what? I'm gonna say that it does. I think if you can look past some of the weird animations and some of the oddball dialogue choices and of course all of the yelling, deep down in the heart of it, there is a good message there. And it actually teaches kids at a very young age about, well, being different. I also feel like it dealt with those themes very well in a way that made it easily digestible for a younger audience. I think that the cartoon really showed that you can take these ideas and themes of superheroes, comic book heroes, bright flashy costumes, ridiculous names. I mean, seriously, like Mr. Sinister. I mean, what kind of name is that? But you could take these themes and you can put it into a cartoon, and the cartoon can poke fun at itself, but also take itself seriously when it needs to. And I think that you hadn't really seen anything like that before. And that trend sort of continued on through the 90s into where we are today. So I think that you should absolutely give this show a shot if you haven't ever seen it, or if you have seen it when you were a kid, 9, 10, 11 years old like I was. Go back and watch it again with a fresh set of eyes. I think you'll find it very nostalgic, but I also think that you'll probably have a really good time with it. Hey dudes, thanks for checking out part 1 of my two-part first episode. Yeah. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. And if you'd like to know when the next episode drops, part 2 is on the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Hit that notification bell in the corner there, and you'll be all set. Thanks for watching. What do you get when you cross Saved by the Bell, karate, and giant robot monster fights? You get the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Not that one. There it is. That one. Those guys. Yeah. Power Rangers was probably the biggest phenomenon of the early 90s. I can't think of another show that gained so much popularity in such a short amount of time than Power Rangers. Power Rangers was directly responsible for a 69% increase in the martial arts industry, the destruction of 4,666,420 trees used in the making of karate boards, a 42% increase in ER visits for kids, and directly responsible for me growing my hair out like Tommy the Green Ranger. I did not look as cool as he did. At all. The basic premise of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is as follows. Rita Repulsa, an evil space witch, escapes her prison dumpster that's on the moon after being trapped for 10,000 years. Like all bad guys, she sets her sights on Earth to conquer through the creation of monsters attacking and destroying one city. Zordon, a floating head, and Alpha 5, a really annoying robot, are the protectors of Earth. Since neither of them have any skills beyond exposition, they recruit 5 teenagers with attitudes that are masters of karate, dance, and gymnastics in order to defeat the evil forces of Rita Repulsa. Now, Zordon straight up recruits 5 teenagers, high school students, and gives them unbelievable powers, weapons, and giant dinosaur robots to defend the fictional city of Angel Grove, California. That's it. Nowhere else. If you've spent more than 5 minutes watching the Power Rangers, you're probably aware that it is a mixture of 2 different TV shows. One of them being a Japanese show called Sentai Zyuranger, and the other one is the Power Rangers show with voiceover work from the actors that you see on the show, as well as live action. The show had the same formula every week. Rita is in a bad mood, yells at her subordinates, her magician Finster reenacts the scene from Ghost, and creates a monster to wreak havoc on the city of Angel Grove. Rita sends the Putty Patrol to fight the teens, and they are easily defeated. This is what the putties sound like. Now it's time for the monster.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Cue 5 minutes of morphing, karate yells, flips, and action poses. They fight the monster, nearly defeating it until, Rita throws her staff to Earth to make her monster grow. Monster big, Power Ranger small. Time to bring in the dinosaur robots. Another 5 minutes of dinosaur robots changing into the Megazord. Megazord and monster fight. It looks like the fight could be lost by our heroes, but wait, no, why don't we just use this power sword? Cut this dickhead in half. Rangers win, Rita cries, a lesson is learned while drinking smoothies at Ernie's Juice Bar. Rinse and repeat. Now, no joke, this is how every episode starts and finishes. Every once in a while there might be an episode where they combine all their weapons together and destroy the monster before it has a chance to grow big and destroy the city again. That's gotta be a nightmare for FEMA. Now, I remember when the first episode of Power Rangers aired on television. It was on the Saturday morning Fox Kids network. Now, what was really strange was the first episode that aired wasn't, of course, the first episode in the series. Instead, it was an episode entitled Food Fight, which featured a giant pig monster. Now, I had never seen the show before, and I was a little bit confused, but hey, karate, giant robots, monsters, what's not to love about it? The episode was a little bit strange. I mean, the Power Rangers already had their powers, there was no backstory, it was just, here you go, enjoy. And you know what? Kids ate it up, literally. Power Ranger cakes. My friends and I became obsessed with this show. And then they introduced probably the greatest and most popular character ever to appear on the show, Tommy Oliver, the Green Ranger. Tommy was featured in a 5-episode story arc called Green with Evil. Basically, the story about that is Rita decided what better way to defeat the Power Rangers than to have her own teenager with attitude. She turns him evil and he becomes the Green Ranger. I mean, he had this dope gold shield, he had this crazy evil laugh. He had a dragon dagger which he used to summon the Dragon Zord. And he kicked a lot of ass. It looked like the Power Rangers had finally met their match. Now, eventually the Green Ranger was defeated and he was able to join the Power Rangers in the fight for good. While it was pretty much guaranteed that the Power Rangers were going to defeat every single monster that Rita threw at them, you throw the Green Ranger into the mix, now his robot is going on top of their robot. So it's like even bigger explosions. Now, eventually they had to find a way to make the Power Rangers vulnerable, so of course you go after the strongest member of the team. Rita devised a plan to take back the power that she had given Tommy, since she is the one who created his power coin. The power coin, which was the power source for the Power Rangers to morph. It's so ridiculous explaining this stuff. They tied the power coin to a green candle, and when that green candle burned down, supposedly Tommy would lose his powers, and sure enough he did, and left the show for a while. But eventually he came back in one of the most mind-blowing episodes I think my 10-year-old self had ever seen in a TV show. Tommy the Green Ranger came back, and it was all me and my friends could talk about the next day at school.
Where's everybody?
Season 1 of Power Rangers lasted for 60 episodes. That is a huge achievement for a television show aimed at children. My interest in Power Rangers was very short-lived. I was already transferring from elementary school into middle school. This show is very much geared towards younger children. The overall themes of the show aren't that dark. It's not a show that has mature content. It's just karate and monsters and robots. According to my very quick Google search, there are 27 seasons of Power Rangers, and each one of them has a different name. Now, I only knew one. There are so many that I didn't want to take the time to memorize it, so I have a sheet of paper. There's Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers, Power Rangers Zero, Power Rangers Turbo, Power Rangers in Space, Lost Galaxy, Lightspeed Rescue, Time Force, Wild Force, Ninja Storm, Dino Thunder, SPD, which stands for Space Patrol Delta, Mystic Force, Samurai, Megaforce, Dino Charge, Ninja Steel, Beast Morphers, and Dino Fury. There are also 3 feature-length films involving the Power Rangers. I have no interest in checking out any of the other incarnations of the Power Rangers. For me, the show just kind of doesn't really do much for me anymore. I think that any sort of influence that it had on me was for a very, very short amount of time. And when you grow out of that time, you don't really need to revisit it. I was definitely embarrassed to admit that I watched this show when I was younger. I had a group of friends that were very much into the show, but beyond that, you'd have other kids in the class that would make fun of you for watching it. It's what kids do. However, I didn't stop watching it because of that. I just grew out of it. For me, there was just no reason to continue watching the show. I was already taking martial arts and I would go to classes early, so I was already missing watching episodes after school, and I just eventually didn't care. Overall, I think that the show does have an influence, but I think it's a very short-lived influence on anybody. Now, some people will probably say they've seen every single season and incarnation of the Power Rangers, and that's cool, I guess. It's just not for me. As of right now, there's a lot of them that are on Netflix, and I've had a chance to sit down and rewatch some of the episodes that I thought I would get the most enjoyment out of. And you know what? I did, in a way. This is a show, once again, that tries to teach a lesson amongst the violence, which is totally fine. All kids shows try to have a message for the kids that are watching it, some sort of educational or some sort of moral message hidden beneath the robots and the monsters shooting lasers at each other. Most shows do a good job at that. Power Rangers does a pretty decent job at it. They made you care about their characters. Now, is this something that I would recommend you go back and watch? Sure, why not? If you want to see the starting point of this phenomenon in the 90s, absolutely go back and watch it. Watch a couple episodes, watch that Green Ranger story arc, Green with Evil, and watch maybe a few here and there. Scroll through Netflix and see the episodes. If there's a cool looking monster on it, check it out. I don't give this as big of a solid recommendation as I would for X-Men the Animated Series, but I do recommend it if it's like a rainy Sunday afternoon and you've got nothing else to watch. So that's going to do it for me on this episode of I Missed the 90s. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode on the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. If you liked the episode, hit that like button down there. Leave a comment. If you grew up with Power Rangers and it's something that you really liked, I want to hear about it. If there was a favorite episode, a favorite character, a favorite monster, let's talk about it. If you want to stay up to date when the next episode drops, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell and you'll be all taken care of. Until next time, go Power Rangers. God damn. The 90s were jam-packed with some amazing music videos. You have Sabotage by the Beastie Boys, Buddy Holly by Weezer, Waterfalls by TLC. Now, today I'm going to be focusing on 3 music videos that are, in my opinion, some of the most influential rock videos of the 90s. Now, don't worry, this is a topic that I'll be revisiting in the future, so there'll be plenty more opportunities to discuss the merits of Sock It To Me by Missy Elliott. Huh. Alright. MTV used to be the best way for kids in the 90s to see their favorite artists. Whether through music videos, live performances, or just general music news, MTV provided hours of entertainment for a generation of kids who otherwise had limited access to up-and-coming artists. In areas where MTV was carried, record stores were now selling music that local radio stations weren't even playing. Now, I have a very faint memory of my first introduction to MTV. I was pretty young, but I do remember seeing the bizarre and sometimes terrifying video Sledgehammer by Peter Gabriel. My exposure to music growing up varied pretty greatly. I loved Michael Jackson, Billy Idol, Def Leppard for some reason, and I really loved the music video for Bryan Adams' Everything I Do It For You. Probably because it was included in the best Robin Hood movie to ever grace the silver screen.
He's right, you know.
MTV was a great introduction to artists that I had never heard of before, and it shaped my musical interest and taste over the years.
Mountain streams, American dreams, a luxury cruise on the sea. Special friends, long weekends, your dog and MTV. Pop it open, pop it open. MTV. Pop open and MTV.
This tastes awful!
MTV. We're not known for our good taste.
Released in 1993 as the second single off their self-titled debut album, Blind Melon's No Rain is arguably less known for the music and more known for B-Girl. Formed in 1990, Blind Melon blended a mix of alternative, folk, and psychedelic rock with a little bit of blues, a little bit of grunge. Catching the eye of Capitol Records after the release of their 4-song demo, Goodfoot Workshop, Blind Melon began working on their next album with the help of producer Rick Parashar, who produced Pearl Jam's super successful album, 10. The album was released in September of 1992, but sales were slow compared to their singles Tons of Homes and No Rain. That would all change the following year after the debut of the music video for No Rain, bringing the band to a multi-platinum level of success. The video overall is low budget. It embraces the idea of less is more. Music videos have a way of connecting artists to their fans, and in the case of No Rain, it certainly sets the tone for Blind Melon. A band that mixes genres of psychedelic and folk rock. Visually, when you see the band playing, it complements their style pretty well. It's easy to imagine them taking a nice afternoon stroll to a large open field, smoking some weed and starting up a drum circle, then diving into a hardcore game of hacky sack.
Hacky sack is a brand name. The generic word is foot bag, and there's all kinds of them on the market. This crocheted one is called a granny bag, and the black one with the studs is for punkers.
The storytelling in No Rain is mostly upbeat and pretty easy to follow. 10-year-old Heather Deloche, donning a bee costume, starts the video off by doing a short tap dance routine, and then she's laughed off stage. Throughout the video, we see her continue to meet and perform in front of strangers with mostly the same result. Feeling defeated, we see her walk toward a gate leading into a field where she sees a group of people dressed as bees, just like her. The rest of the video is a mixture of the band playing and Heather dancing with the other bee people. Bee people? Yeah, bee people. A simple and effective message of hope and finding oneself in the world around them. Now, musically, No Rain is catchy as hell. The simple acoustic strumming, the beautiful bass line complementing the soft beat of the drum, all tied together with Shannon Hoon's vocals. No Rain serves as a great introduction to Blind Melon. If you enjoyed this song, then you would likely enjoy the rest of what they have to offer. I love the simplicity of the lyrics. They are beautifully written, and they really don't seem to hide its meaning in allegories or symbolism. Now, while I think the lyrics are beautiful, they do kind of have some sad meaning. Bass player Brad Smith is credited with the majority of the writing and told Song Facts, "No Rain came from when I first moved to California. I was playing songs on Venice Beach for change, and it was inspired by just how tough it was in LA. I had bouts of depression and the whole, what am I doing out here? Am I going to go back to Mississippi? I had nobody out here. There was just no family. I didn't know a soul out here at first." Smith went on to say, so the song is about not being able to get out of bed and find excuses to face the day when you have really, in a way, nothing. It was like rock bottom. I wasn't even on drugs or drinking. It was just tough. It was just a tough point in my life. And the cool thing about that song, I think a lot of people do interpret those lyrics properly and can connect with it on that level. The line, "I don't understand why I sleep all day, and I start to complain that there's no rain." It's just a line about, I'd rather it be raining so I can justify myself laying in bed and doing nothing. But it's a sunny day, so get out and face it.
Life gets better when you and your family plug into MTV. Junior's grades have improved.
I got a C+ in health ed.
Sis has perfect teeth.
No cavities.
Mom has more energy for housework.
My kitchen is spotless. And so are the glasses.
And Dad got a raise at the car wash. They made me head wiper. When you plug into MTV, you plug into a brighter tomorrow.
If it weren't for MTV, we'd all be complete losers. Right, Dad?
That's right, son. MTV, the most trusted name in music television.
Arguably, Soundgarden's most popular song, Black Hole Sun, was released in 1994 on their fourth studio release, Super Unknown. This album cover used to always remind me of the Weekly World News classic story on Bat Boy. Black Hole Sun enjoyed the #1 spot on the Billboard mainstream rock track charts for 7 weeks, and the #2 spot on the Billboard modern rock track chart. Amazing. The song's a fucking banger. Now, Soundgarden was one of my favorite bands growing up, but I really wasn't introduced to them until the album Super Unknown, and it has everything to do with the music video for Black Hole Sun. The song was so popular that at my 8th grade dance, it was played 3 times, and kids slow danced to the song. They slow dance. Soundgarden had enjoyed quite a bit of success before the release of Super Unknown, but this album really was the launching point for mainstream success by fine-tuning the creativity and heaviness of past albums while showcasing the band's evolving style. The first 15 seconds of the video are nothing too special. It looks like your typical 90s era rock and metal video, with shots of a desert and a mountain area. Then there's a close-up shot of an ominous-looking sun, and then we see the band playing in a field. And that's where the weird kicks in. This video both fascinates me and makes me extremely uncomfortable. It's the exaggerated expressions while doing mundane and ordinary things, and then cutting back to the band playing in a field and looking bored. Music videos for me were one way I could enjoy seeing a band I like perform. In Black Hole Sun, it really only served as a mental break from all the bizarre imagery. But it was a welcomed one. This video is not bad. As a kid, though, the video made me uncomfortable, almost like I shouldn't be watching it. It's like the first time I saw Paula Abdul's Cold-Hearted Snake video. I felt things inside that I have never felt before. The idea for the video came from director Howard Greenhall. Guitarist Kim Thile had this to say about music videos and directors. So they have a particular vision, and sometimes we look at it and we're often disappointed. We've been disappointed with most of our videos. There were a couple we were really satisfied with, though. Black Hole Sun we were satisfied with, and Jesus Christ Posed as well. Most of the others we were like, well, whatever. I find the music of Black Hole Sun to be very hypnotic. It's kind of drab, but in an attention-grabbing sort of way. The song pulls you in and doesn't let you go. Black Hole Sun is unlike anything else in the band's catalog. It's got a little psychedelic vibe and a hair-raising tone that was once described by Jeff Gilbert of Guitar World as reminiscent of the Beatles during their glue-sniffing period. An interesting piece of equipment was also used in the recording of Black Hole Sun, called a Leslie speaker. Here's a diagram of the inside of the speaker. And here it is animated. Pretty cool, right? Things spinning. Looks like it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. I'm not a sound engineer, but I'm easily distracted by things twirling.
And always twirling, twirling, twirling towards freedom.
I figured you might want a little more information on what exactly this speaker does. A Leslie speaker was originally designed to be used as a companion piece for an organ. Look how ugly that is. It adds a neat warble-like effect, kind of like a police siren, changing in pitch and volume as it goes past you. This is also known as the Doppler effect. If you listen to some 60s and 70s rock and soul, you'll instantly recognize this sound. It produces a vibrating effect that fills a room. Musically, Black Hole Sun is perfect from start to finish. It keeps you on the edge of your seat in anticipation. You know what? Even though the song clocks in at just over 5 minutes, it never really gets boring. It just builds and builds, layer upon layer. Kim Thayil compared the song to Dream On by Aerosmith or Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin, and I think that is absolutely appropriate. Now, perhaps the most mysterious aspect of the song, it's the lyrics. Musicians have a talent for creating deeply personal pieces of art, and sometimes keeping the meaning close to their chest and letting the audience decide what the song means to them. With Black Hole Sun, it all started with a car ride. Chris Cornell said in an interview, "I wrote it in my head driving home from Bear Creek Studio in Woodinville. It's a 40-minute drive from Seattle. It sparked from something a news anchor said. I heard, blah, 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 Black Hole Sun, blah, 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 Black Hole Sun, Black Hole Sun, Black Hole Sun, Black Hole Sun.
Shut up about the sun! Shut up about the sun!
And it created this image in my brain, and I thought it would be an amazing song title. That was a title that came before music, so the music was the inspiration that came from the images created by those words. Cornell claimed he wrote the song to play with lyrics. Lyrically, it's probably the closest to me just playing with words for word's sake of anything I've ever written. I guess it worked for a lot of people who heard it, but I have no idea how you'd even begin to take that one literally. Reading the lyrics, there really isn't that much in the way of storytelling. If we are to believe Cornell, the lyrics have no real meaning. It's a song about nothing.
It's about nothing. Right. Everybody's doing something. We'll do nothing.
There are lines in the song that can be interpreted however you like, but I think the vagueness of the lyrics, the mental imagery of a black hole sun, the buildup of the music, the distinct voice of Cornell, really just make this a classic song. In this video, I talked about two bands that, due to the popularity of their music videos, ended up enjoying a lot of mainstream success. Now, Blind Melon and Soundgarden are incredibly talented musicians that could have easily been overlooked if you weren't into their respective genres. If you're interested in checking out more songs by these artists, I highly recommend the songs Time by Blind Melon and Head Down by Soundgarden. Now, I have a lot to say about the third music video, but you're going to have to wait for my next episode to drop.
Man, that sucks!
If you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you know when the next episode comes out. Hint, it's soon. Do you have a favorite 90s rock video? What did you think of No Rain and Black Hole Sun? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, crank that shit up to 11 and headbang responsibly. You do know that song is about my vagina, right? Throw down your umbilical noose so I can climb right back. was one band from the 90s that I wish I could have seen perform live in person, it would have been Nirvana. The raw energy of the music, the unmistakable voice of Kurt Cobain, the long hair, these dudes were dope. Forming in 1987 in Aberdeen, Washington, Nirvana quickly rose to the top of the Seattle grunge scene. By 1989, their first studio-produced album, Bleach, was released by the label Sub Pop, and while being praised by music critics, album sales were slow, only reaching 40,000 units sold before the release of Nevermind 3 years later. Adding drummer Dave Grohl to the mix, Nirvana set out to record their sophomore release, Nevermind, with a much more polished and clean sound than the raw, chaotic offering of Bleach. This proved to be a much more successful formula, and Nirvana had achieved almost overnight critical and commercial success. In January 1992, Nevermind reached #1 on the US Billboard 200, selling almost 300,000 units a week.
Damn!
Nevermind became gold, platinum, and diamond certified in a very short amount of time, hitting diamond status as early as November 1991. The third and final studio album, In Utero, was released in September of 1993. Once again, the band managed to put out another incredibly successful album. Upon release, In Utero reached #1 on both the US Billboard 200 and UK album chart. When choosing which music video to cover, I was torn between Smells Like Teen Spirit and Heart-Shaped Box. Both are fantastic videos capturing the energy and personality of Nirvana. Ultimately, I chose Heart-Shaped Box due to it having a much bigger impact on me growing up in the 90s. The music video was released when I was at an age of forming a lot of my own personal tastes. For my 10th birthday, I had received In Utero on cassette. I had written a letter to Kurt Cobain asking if Nirvana could play at my school dance. No idea where I even sent that letter.
In they go. Letters, bills, paychecks for this mail carrier isn't done yet.
I ugly cried during a Little League game when I thought about Kurt Cobain committing suicide. And I awkwardly sang all apologies over the phone to my girlfriend of 3 weeks after an argument.
Apologies.
The release of In Utero was already plagued by controversy by the time it was released. Walmart, home of too many marriage ceremonies, adopted a policy in 1993 that prohibited objectionable material. This meant that the album artwork for In Utero had to be reworked. Walmart, where you can purchase guns, violent video games, sexy movies, cigarettes, and canned sandwiches. Now, you might think that the idea of changing the artwork so it could be released at Walmart would be considered selling out. That was a phrase we heard all too often in the 90s, but there's a good reason behind that. As kids, Kurt Cobain and bassist Chris Novoselic were only able to buy music from 2 major chain stores. And as a result, they said, "We really want to make our music available to kids who don't have the opportunity to go to mom and pop stores." The vision for Heart-Shaped Box came mostly from Kurt Cobain himself. Dutch rock photographer Anton Corbijn, probably said that wrong, was set to direct the video and worked very hard to capture Kurt's vision for Heart-Shaped Box. Anton said, "Kurt drew out images for the video. He would fax them to me. Kurt's ideas came fully formed along with the song. Kurt was so incredibly detailed in his ideas, and they were so good that of course I went with those. I would say that I contributed, idea-wise, maybe 15%. This video is similar in style and aesthetic to Black Hole Sun, and actually, come to think of it, this is another video with a band playing in a field. I don't know. This video has a very surreal feeling to it. An old man with a Santa Claus hat tied to a cross, a little girl wearing a KKK outfit, fake-ass crows, a large woman wearing a meat suit. Meat! Yeah, shit like that. This is a video that if my mom saw me watching it, she'd probably change the channel.
I'm eating junk and watching rubbish. You better come out and stop me.
The 90s embraced weird. Our food was weird, cartoons were weird, game shows were weird. So of course our music videos were no exception. Kurt wanted to shoot the video in Technicolor, the most widely used color process in Hollywood from 1922 to 1952. a style that you would see in films like Wizard of Oz or The Adventures of Robin Hood. Since Technicolor wasn't an option, Anton said, "My producer and I devised an idea to shoot it in color, then transfer it to black and white, so the black and white would match the colors in gray tone, and then hand tint every single frame. That took weeks. It was a very long process, but it gave the video a particular look, a particular brightness for the colors. That process gives it an almost dreamlike look, and I am particularly fond of how blue it makes Kurt's eyes."
What a babe.
Heart-Shaped Box is an interesting song, and it's easy to see how it became the focus for a music video. In fact, in an MTV segment where college kids were asked to listen and critique the album, one dude correctly guessed that it would be a hit.
So very similar to the first album, and I got a couple songs that I thought would be playing on the radio, going to be hits. Third track, I think, Heart-Shaped Box will probably be on MTV or something.
Heart-Shaped Box has a very unique sound. It's eerie, haunting, and full of energy at all the right moments. Nirvana had intended for the record to diverge significantly from the polished, refined production of its previous album, Nevermind. Early in 1992, Cobain said that In Utero would showcase both of the extremes of its sound, saying, "It'll be more raw with some songs and more candy pop on some of the others. It won't be as one-dimensional as Nevermind." Heart-Shaped Box is a perfectly balanced song that would be right at home on Bleach or Nevermind. At times the guitar sounds out of tune and plays off of Cobain's voice beautifully. During the verses, Dave Grohl shows a lot of restraint, almost sounding like a metronome at times. Tick-tack, tick-tack, tick-tack. But then he kicks up the energy on the chorus. And the bass adds a nice punch, filling in the missing pieces between the distortion of the guitar and the heavy beat on the drums. Trying to get to the bottom of what the lyrics of Heart-Shaped Box are about has been an interesting and confusing mess. The theories cover everything from a song about Kurt's reaction to a TV segment he saw about children with cancer, to Kurt and Courtney Love's relationship. Those that believe the lyrics are about Courtney Love point to a literal heart-shaped box filled with doll heads and various other possessions Love gave Cobain, as noted in the book, Come As You Are. Or because the lyrics mention Pisces and Cancer. Kurt's a Pisces, and Courtney's a Cancer. It all makes sense. Another and perhaps more bizarre reason to believe that it had to do with Courtney Love comes from a tweet by Love herself, where she tells singer Lana Del Rey, after Del Rey had covered Heart-Shaped Box at a performance in Sydney, "You do know that song is about my vagina, right? Throw down your umbilical noose so I can climb right back."
Oh, that's nasty.
Regardless of the song's true meaning, the lyrics have some amazing imagery, and the music video itself complements the lyrics almost perfectly. In a segment on MTV that featured Nirvana reacting to college kids' critiques of the album, something stuck out to me quite a bit. We get a glimpse of Cobain's reaction to the song Rape Me, and how he was sick of people trying to dissect his lyrics and trying to find a deeper meaning than what he has presented.
A couple of songs were pretty good. The fourth song, Rape Me, I was not too happy with that song. I found it kind of offensive.
Let me repeat that, anti-rape song. I don't know, I just thought, got tired of people thinking, trying to put too much meaning into my lyrics, you know, being too, not making enough sense, you know, so I decided to be really blunt and bold.
So, what do we believe? Is Heart-Shaped Box being looked at too deeply? Or is this song really about the very public and exhausting relationship Cobain had with Courtney Love? To me, it matters very little what the song actually means. Kurt had a way of expressing his thoughts on so many of his songs that were less ambiguous. And Heart-Shaped Box looks like it pulls from various sources and isn't a definitive song about one thing or another.
You do know that song is about my vagina, right?
Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? This two-part video series on the best rock music videos of the 90s was probably one of the most unintentionally emotional videos I have had to research for. All three bands covered, Blind Melon, Soundgarden, and Nirvana, have all tragically lost their frontmen. Shannon Hoon died at the age of 28, Kurt Cobain, age 27, and Chris Cornell at the age of 52 in 2017. Now, I will admit that Blind Melon really wasn't a band that I was super into when I was younger. I enjoyed the video for No Rain, but I really never bought any of their albums. I do, however, recognize the massive amount of talent that the band had, and Shannon Hoon's vocal work was incredible. Chris Cornell's death hit me pretty hard, and while I never got into his side project Audioslave, I did end up actually doing a deep dive of some of his solo performances that, holy shit, they were breathtakingly beautiful. He was such a talented artist, and he will be sorely missed. And finally, Kurt Cobain's death was probably the most impactful for me, especially at a young age. I made a joke about ugly crying during a baseball game after he died, and well, that's actually true, it happened. It was the first celebrity death that I felt emotional over. Maybe it was the realization that our idols are not immune to death. But after watching different videos on Cornell performing songs like Nothing Compares to You and Patience, it left me wondering what the future for Cobain would have looked like. Nirvana's Unplugged gave us a peek into a stripped-down version of Nirvana, and it is honestly one of my favorite performances. But in one of the last interviews of Kurt Cobain before his death, this is what he had to say about the future of Nirvana and their sound. I once did a story on gay skeletons found in a Titanic life ring, which is... what the hell is that? That makes no sense. If you were like me in the 90s and you weren't lucky enough to stay in the car while your mom went grocery shopping, you got to know the layout of the store pretty well. You knew where the cereal aisle was because one day she might just let you get a box of Cookie Crisp. Oh, this sucks. Maybe there was a small toy aisle filled with shit toys like knockoff G.I. Joes and Magic Grow capsules. Or if you were lucky like I was, you could scrounge up some quarters and play Street Fighter 2 for about 5 minutes. After what seems like an eternity, you stroll down every aisle looking for your mom, and off to the checkout you go. Filled with disappointment in the 5-pound bag of off-brand Captain Crunch she bought, no toys, and getting your ass kicked in Street Fighter because you thought it was a good idea to be Blanca,
You lose.
your eyes begin to wander, looking for just one last-minute thing to beg your mom for. While your groceries are being bagged, something catches your eye amongst the Food Digest and soap opera magazines. The sound of the checkout scanner fades as your eyes lock on the most puzzling and possibly biggest news story you have ever seen.
Aliens back Clinton.
As you stare at the photos of Bill Clinton shaking the hand of an alien, you begin to wonder, why haven't I heard of this? Why is everyone acting so calmly in the store? And most importantly, did I just shit my pants?
I got a bowl of chocolate pudding in my underpants.
So who is responsible for this mind-blowing breaking news? Well, that would be the Weekly World News. Once exposed to the Weekly World News, it becomes hard to shake the feeling that maybe the world is a weirder place than you were told. Oh shit, a boy with 2 brains. The Dead Sea Scrolls reveal the future. Ooh, the winning lotto numbers. Mom! Then your soul becomes crushed as you hear the phrase for the first time in your life, fake news.
You are fake news.
In the year 2020, we've become accustomed to hearing the phrase fake news. Usually from people trying to discredit legitimate facts that don't agree with their worldviews. I'm not going to get political. Nope. Most of you have heard of another satirical publication, The Onion, and you have to admit their headlines these days hit a little too close to home. But the Weekly World News was absolutely batshit crazy. In 1979, Generoso Pope Jr. launched the Weekly World News alongside his right-wing populist tabloid, The National Enquirer. Published in Lantana, Florida before moving to Boca Raton in the late 90s, the Weekly World News was, at its peak, publishing 1.2 million copies an issue. In the beginning, much like the National Enquirer, Weekly World News would focus on celebrity gossip and reworked weird stories from across the globe. Weekly World News editor and former White House correspondent... am I reading that right? Okay. About 80% of the stories were clipped from newspapers. We had 3 or 4 clippers who were surrounded by mountains of newspapers. We spent the day looking at newspapers throughout the world and just clipping weird stories. People narrowly escaping death, someone falling off a cliff, or hanging off a tree branch for 4 days until they were rescued. We would write the story and put in a splashy headline. Most stories were very true and accurate. So what was the turning point? How did the Weekly World News go from celebrity gossip and strange but true news stories to this? Editor-in-Chief Ian Calder describes the change this way. It slowly morphed into that. It didn't change overnight. The paper wasn't able to get fantastic stories from clippings, and so it slowly used less and less stuff from other newspapers, and became more about things from the minds of the editors. Keeping a tab on sales, they realized they made more money by getting away from celebrity gossip and differentiating themselves with bigger and bolder headlines. The tabloid began running articles with reoccurring themes such as Loch Ness Monster sightings, Elvis sightings, and of course stories on the infamous Bat Boy. Or is it Bat Child? Despite these themes, they claim to always print the truth. But as you can tell by some of these headlines, these stories had a comedic bend to them. Eventually, though, due to too many instances of people believing outlandish claims published in the paper, Weekly World News started issuing a statement in 2004 that readers should suspend disbelief for the sake of enjoyment. Oh. One of the most consistent types of stories the Weekly World News was known for was future predictions. In this copy that I own from April 1996, we see the Dead Scrolls reveal the future, which includes the economic boom of 1996, Jesus Christ returning to Earth, and the exact day the world will end. While it is safe to say that the economic boom in 1996 did indeed happen, it was not the promised, quote, benefit for every man, woman, and child on the planet. Instead, it was a moderate percentage of growth likely due to the sale of baby tees, the launch of CKB, and aggressive Looney Tunes shirts. And if Jesus Christ had returned to Earth, he's been, well, pretty quiet. Likely living out his days trying to figure out what to watch on Netflix.
Yo, Jesus, pick something.
The biggest and perhaps the most terrifying prediction is, well, when the world will end. And according to the Weekly World News, it will be September 4th, 2025. I wouldn't put too much faith in that, though, as it has been predicted many times before during the 90s. While it is safe to assume that most people would regard these news stories as entertainment even before the added statement to suspend disbelief, the Weekly World News certainly gained attention by the more hysterical members of our population. In 2010, Fox and Friends reported that the Los Angeles Police Department had purchased 10,000 jetpacks for their officers for the low price of $1 billion.
1 billion, gajillion, fifillion, shabadoo.
Austin Pat.
The city of Los Angeles already ordering 10,000 jetpacks for its police, paramedics, and fire departments.
Are you kidding?
Can we afford that? The jetpack can fly up to 63 miles per hour and get as high as 8,000 feet in the air.
That story, however, was false, and one created by the Weekly World News. It's understandable that in the 90s, fact-checking stories you've read was a bit more difficult, and sensationalist headlines were attention-grabbing. As crazy as it may seem, Weekly World News did in fact run some news stories that were true over the years, such as a story about Hogzilla in Georgia, a skydiver learning mid-air that he forgot his parachute, and a woman bursting into flames during an operation. Although I am inclined to believe that this story is true too. Editors and writers at the Weekly World News have stated that some themes did better than others. According to Paul Cooperberg, the heaven and hell stuff was strong. Things discovered in the Titanic were also pretty good, and coming disasters and an apocalypse of some sort. Giant monsters. C. Michael Forsythe, a writer from 1996 to 2005, said, I once did a story on gay skeletons found in a Titanic life ring, which is... what the hell is that? That makes no sense. But I wrote it, and people said it was actually quite touching. The sailors dying in each other's arms. The Weekly World News was, in most cases, a true example of fake news. Attention-grabbing headlines, semi-convincing articles, and creative pictures, it was meant to be entertaining. In the 90s, it was a staple of grocery store checkout stands and didn't cause too much controversy, although I'm sure more than one person has argued with their uncle about the validity of the story they read in the Weekly World News. Now it becomes harder and harder to spot fake news. Whether that's due to our short attention spans, inability to use logic and critical thinking skills, or just the overabundance of information aimed at exhausting us until the next outrage-inducing story breaks. Whatever the case may be, one thing I know for sure: I miss the simple days of fake news in the 90s. If you're a collector like me, I highly suggest picking up some issues of Weekly World News from eBay, stashing them away in a box, and confusing your grandchildren in the future. Thank you for watching this episode of I Miss the 90s on the Weekly World News. I'm your host, Mike O'Connor. Thanks.